So I titled this Vámonos pa'l Monte, Refuge, Radical Joy, and Transcendence. This title references the famous Puerto Rican salsa track by Eddie Palmieri with the lyrics, Vámonos pa'l Monte, al monte pa' guarachar. Vámonos pa'l monte, al monte me gusta más. Let's go to the mountains, up into the hills, to go dance, party down. Let's go there because I like this best. My work has changed dramatically across my 20-plus year career. I've grown tired of fiery critiques and knee-jerk reactions in my work. I'm shedding that old skin and slipping into a new space of joy and wonder in my studio. I lived through the Trump presidency, the COVID-19 pandemic, and the murder of George Floyd in Central Florida. I found myself suddenly aching to return to the trees, to become part of a landscape, seeking the kind of shelter and privacy that the forest can bring and hide from the pain and danger that was brewing. This is radical for a Bronx born and bred Boricua, right? But the trees have always called to me. As a kid, nature was limited to Joyce Kilmer Park on Grand Concourse or Orchard Beach, and the occasional family jaunts to Los Siete Lagos, the 7 lakes, at Harriman State Park. I wasn't aware of the lack of trees in the Bronx until Mayor Bloomberg announced his Million Tree initiative back in 2007, an initiative that was to improve the air quality in New York City. My true love affair started when I left New York and headed to Orlando to begin my job at the university. The first sight of my new neighborhood snatched my soul and gave it back to me. It was laced with giant live oak trees dripping with Spanish moss. I wondered what joys and horrors those old sentinels had seen, quietly observing the pettiness of humanity. Over the years, I've spent more time meditating on the landscape and my profound attraction to the tropical forests of Florida. I realized that this was the closest I'd ever come to living in Puerto Rico. All of my adult trips were there, mainly for work purposes, and never longer than a few days. I started thinking that maybe it was time to think of a real visit to the island, and I came up with a list of reasons why I should do so. 1, I haven't taken a proper vacation in over 20 years, and I'm a workaholic. 2, my job as a professor affords me a work-free summer, except that it isn't work-free. Instead, time to catch up on art making, residencies, studio visits, and building up materials for the ever-looming academic year. 3, I felt a deep urgency to show my child the source of my identity and the epicenter of my being, and hope that this experience imbued him with his own sense of belonging and pride. 4, I'd never really explored Puerto Rico before. While I visited almost every year as a girl and a young adult, I spent much of that time on a small hillside in the home of my maternal uncle and tia política, aunt by marriage, in a barrio on the outskirts of Guaynabo, about 25 minutes from the island's capital of San Juan. This time was spent mostly with my mother and my very conservative tío, tia, and maternal grandfather, whose tiny wood home on stilts, directly behind their own home, was frozen in time, encapsulating the bulk of my experience on the island. I found myself perched on the ledge of the carport or the marquesina, eating mangoes from the huge tree that once shaded Tia's home, hoping that someone might take me exploring. Out on the front porch, I watched young men riding paso fino horses bareback up and down the hills, waiting for someone to take me to a movie. On a beach chair in my tia's front lawn, I scandalously worked on my teenage tan as chickens clucked nearby, hoping to see a beach, park, El Morro, or any of the treasures that were my birthright. That hardly ever happened. Oh, sure, I visited with my elders, my Spanglish globbed in my throat, slapping mosquitoes while my mother chatted with Tia what's her name or Tio Don Viejo with the thick glasses. I sat mute as my mother's friends marveled at how much taller and lighter I was than everyone else in my family, dodging jabs at my weight and how I desperately needed to speak Spanish. The mark of La Americana was right there, etched on my itchy, blotchy mosquito welts, to the horror of my family. There was that one time on the beach that at the beach when my primo so-and-so took me off the hill and out of some version of mercy, forgot to put sunscreen on me and returned me looking sun-ravaged and crazy. On rare occasions, a cousin from my late father's side of the family would pop by and they'd hear that we were in town and offer to drive us through Old San Juan. Never park and walk, just drive. There was that one time when Tío What's-His-Face offered to take me out por ahí, maybe to grab an ice cream and some chicken feed, but first, a pit stop. Let's stop right here for a minute, he said, to the gallera, that's the cockfights, to place a few bets. I can still remember the smell of the blood that hung in the air and the sounds, those god-awful sounds. There was that one tia on my dad's side who always was fun to visit. Aside from the mosquitoes and no one speaking English, she was quirky and had lots of daughters that were so different from the cousins on the hillside with their long skirts and their long hair wrapped in tight in doobies to protect from the humidity before heading to Puerto, that's church. These cousins were tall, wore tight jeans and lots of makeup and dyed their hair and were infinitely more glamorous to me. I couldn't understand them very well, but I liked to watch them move. In my tia's house, they watched TV and I saw my favorite cartoons and shows, dubbed in Spanish, of course. The Flintstones became Los Picapiedras and Wonder Woman was La Mujer Maravilla. It was a little disorienting and exacerbated my homesickness, but it was better than nothing. Tia offered me super sweet juice served in a repurposed bean can with ice made in a milk carton that she filled with water and beat with a pilon to break chunks free. It was fascinating to me. She once took my mom and me a pasear, and we ended up on the grounds of a fancy hotel and casino. We didn't go inside, but we wandered the gardens where I saw snow white peacocks. It was all very grand. Then we were deposited back on the hillside. Don't get me wrong, these trips were not terrible, and they served a very specific purpose. Come on in, entra, come on, siéntese. My mother was keeping me connected to her family and to my dad's family. I mean, she certainly didn't have to keep taking me there after my father died when I was 11, but she did. While I can't say that I know them very well or have strong familial bonds, I can say with confidence that I feel more Puerto Rican because of those moments. And I have a deep gratitude for that knowledge. You may or may not know about the hierarchy of Puerto Ricanness, the ability to measure up to the expectations of cultural authenticity of one's ancestral place of origin is vital, especially when returning to one's patria. It's nothing new to anyone from the diaspora, and it is real. The better your vocabulary, pronunciation, and understanding of cultural nuance, the higher up on the diasporican ladder, higher up you are on the diasporican ladder, and this can smooth out some potentially bumpy terrain. Trust that you will get chided for being de por allá, del otro lado del charco, from the other side of the puddle. Bonus points if you can cook the cuisine with proficiency. This is a whole different level of currency that is valued both stateside and abroad. There are much deeper investigations to be made here, but I can save that for another essay. As my particular family was raised to be Puerto Rican as opposed to New Yorican, a term vehemently opposed by certain members of my immediate family, as it is a form of devaluing or negating the validity of our heritage. The thought of not measuring up or impressing those on the island with our authenticity, as the young kids say, low-key important. Personally, though nature versus concrete jungle flows throughout my work, with work in the background, but now is beginning to really take center stage. This trip was not to be a resort, This trip was not to be a resort at Piña Colada filled Gringolandia paradise. Instead, a homecoming. One other thing about going to Puerto Rico this time was to see the trees back home. I mean, really see the trees. During one of my all too academic moments, grinding my gears over a grant application, I thought a lot about how trees were making their way into my work. I started making sculptures that looked like distorted trees, drawing vine-like pictures in my sketchbooks, and spending a lot of time observing the multitude of textures on different plant species. I noticed that my drawings were all of American trees. If I wasn't drawing, I was taking pictures of the species that I encountered around me: live oaks, saw palmettos, date palms, pine trees, magnolias, cypress trees, all towering beauties that surrounded my Florida home. I never got bored of them, and riding my bike around the neighborhood in their shade was always delightful. Whenever I saw a new neighborhood development start, I felt genuine grief for the trees felled for this purpose. Seeing them stacked haphazardly like discarded toys, shoved in a corner waiting for a wood chipper to arrive and finish the job was, and is, gutting to me. I felt like I owed it to them to acknowledge them. It was in the struggle with this proposal that I had realized that all of the trees in my work were from my immediate surroundings and not native to Puerto Rico. It only felt just akin to it. A fellow artist asked me to consider using island trees, and it hit me that I couldn't authentically speak about the island's trees because I didn't know them. In actuality, I didn't know the island either. Holy shit. I don't know the island. All this time I've been claiming the island as mine, and we don't even know each other. It always feels disingenuous to make work about things that I don't know, and that my personal code of ethics prohibits me from using elements in my work that I have little embodied knowledge of. Let's skip. Okay. Because I'm doing this manually, so my cheeks are red, I'm struggling, I'm fighting for my life. Okay? Whew. Where the hell was I? Okay, my code of ethics prohibits me from using elements in my work that I have little embodied knowledge of. I decided to propose the idea of funded field research alongside scholars who specialize in trees and plants of the island. I would document plants and trees connected to those hillsides where my mother grew up, learn some of the ways that those plants, fruits, seeds, herbs were used, cross-referencing them with stateside artifacts in the National Museum collection. I would have a knowledge base to authenticate my creative research. It got rejected. And with it, momentarily, was the one chance to connect with the land of my ancestors. Yo, wait up, says who? You're kidding, right? Was I really telling myself that I couldn't go back to the island unless it was research funded? This is so disconnected. The entire thing suddenly felt stupid. Puerto Rico is home. Just go home. Home to who? The family on the hill that will welcome me, but then will just let me sit on the porch and just wait? Well, you can rent a car, can't you? It's expensive, I whined to myself. The truth is, I was scared. I have GPS my way around the United States with very little worry. But the thought of driving around this crazy little island with tiny streets and random power outages, disastrous storms, lackadaisical local culture, and my stupid Spanglish that will give me away, well, it paralyzed me. I wanted to know the island, but I couldn't face how foreign it was to me. It's a different vibe, and I'm infinitely more American than I care to admit. Especially after 13 full years away from New York City and steeped in Gringolandia. However, I knew I needed to go. I had to get my son there while he was still young, and his sense of belonging and pride was just developing. I want him to feel anchored to a place that will embrace him when this crazy American place won't, just as it does for me. The thought of my beloved cultura dying on the vine because I didn't invest more time sharing with my son cut into me. I want him to see people that look like him in the mall, on the beach, or on the playground. I want the smells, sounds, tastes, and vistas of Puerto Rico to fill his senses and more his story to a real place instead of the Goya section at the grocery store. He will need a place. He will need this place as a compass as he grows into his cinnamon skin and curls as thick and stormy as the sea. He will take his place at this table, be embraced, and be filled with stories of resistance. I also need to see the trees badly. Going alone, I would probably do this all wrong. I would be daunted and squander the time and resources that it took to get me there. I wouldn't dare enter the rainforest or find my way to the sea. I would succumb to the safety of an Airbnb and local fare, cobble together some mediocre patchwork of memories, and return home feeling empty. Since I didn't trust myself, I would need to recruit the right tour guide. A low-maintenance partner that would gladly bypass white linen dining and choose wax paper street fare. Someone who would not chide me for gawking at canopies of flamboyant trees, who would let me jump out of the car to pick up mangoes off the side of the road and not bat an eyelash. My travel partner would have to match my dorkiness, have a love of crunchy snacks, good music, bad jokes. My buddy would not flinch at driving nearly 2 hours of twisty roads and crossing sketchy bridges to see a very specific 400-year-old tree. This meant I needed to experience the island with someone whose love of the island is immeasurable as her love of family, whose commitment to learning far exceeds my own, and who is infinitely braver, wiser, and more driven than me in many ways. I had to call my sister Lily. Lily is no joke. She's the person that you hear about in feel-good pieces at the end of the news broadcasts. The retired school principal that cooks for the local soup kitchen, the one working towards her barber's license so she can cut hair for the elderly. That's all real, dead ass. To say that I am proud of her is an understatement. She's brilliant, devoted, fiercely independent, and would move mountains just to see you smile. I can't lie, I was nervous when I asked at first. But she said she'd agreed. And she agreed to host my kid. I was thrilled. My son and I arrived in Puerto Rico without much of a plan. Instead, we went with the flow. I confessed my naivete of the island. And she was surprised that with all of my travel, I'd seen so little outside of what I read from books or the internet, and of course, the tia on the hill. With that, our adventure began. Oh boy, I lost my place. There we go. We spent many hours in a tiny car together, winding through southern coastal throughways. I rode shotgun and white knuckle while snaking up and down bamboo-canopied, one-lane mountain roads, evading chickens and stray dogs that ambled alongside. I was wide-eyed and awe-stricken by the magnificence and the ferocity of this place that I had always claimed but hardly knew. We bathed in the ancient rivers of El Yunque, ate homegrown pineapples from Cabo Rojo, got wicked lost in Jayuya, swerved around huge crabs crossing the streets of Islote, and danced bomba on the beaches of Loíza. 3 weeks barely scratched the surface of this beautiful, wounded place. Intermingled with lush green foliage are the scars of a strangled economy. Abandoned homes with sweeping views of the ocean or high above valleys. Entire communities reduced to husks of their former selves weighed on me. Observing how many battery-operated lanterns rested casually within arm's reach in someone's home, in some homes, or stockpiled bottles of water in corners were not so gentle reminders of the precariousness of the island's power grid and the government scandal lurking beneath. My feelings of guilt and gluttony were real. To live here is to attempt a level of harmony with the restlessness of nature and the naked ambition of those who govern. It is a strange mix of gratitude, resistance, and surrender that is difficult to explain simply. This is why for so long my work was so anchored in the Nuyorican story as opposed to an island one. Again, my ethics will not allow me to attempt this complex discourse from the cushy distance of the States. I always knew deep in my bones that I couldn't speak of something that I haven't lived because integrity is expensive. and I would never proclaim that I hadn't seen something that I hadn't seen or felt with my own eyes, skin, hands. Instead, I spent years mining my Nuyorican angst, feeling lost, unseen, misunderstood, and miscategorized, bogged down with ensuring that a place was held for us. I built entire bodies of work in order to hold back the waters of erasure. Your girl is tired. It's been a few months since this enriching trip. Like the lush rainforest and nutrient-rich soil of the Isla, the seeds that were planted are growing in me and in my little one. Puerto Rico is more than a resort destination, more than fried food, beaches, and sunscreen. It is a tormented but resilient mother to a people who have had no choice but to persist and rise. She has earned a new level of respect and humbling admiration for her unbridled abundance, despite how she has been treated. Skip, skip, skip. Listen. It bees like that sometimes, right? All right. She has earned a new level of respect and humbling admiration for me for her unbridled abundance, despite how she's been treated. My son has started to learn Spanish so he can more fully enjoy himself when we return, because we will return. I am back in the drawing studio, using photos that I took as reference of the place where I went to for sanctuary, and instead grew into my family, not just with my kin, but with the giant trees in Ejunque, and lining the streets on all of our journeys. I am drawing to hold fast to the place that feeds something deep and powerful inside of me. This place, with its tiny roads that course like veins through her body, and trees that sway with the same rhythm and mystery in my hips. I must bring my son back to adorn his mahogany skin and shimmering in shimmering ocean diamonds. My partner, my gringo husband, should feel the pulse of my people's heart in his chest, to fully know that the heartbeat, like thunder, is too strong for just one body. I don't think I've ever felt such a strong pull towards her as I do now. I must return and grow our home there. For the first time in my life and career, I feel as if I were granted full permission to be happy and not need to explain over and over again the plight of the Latinx artist. There, deep in the mountains or on small roadside beaches, I felt an openness that is still with me. There, amid the groaning towers of bamboo, or at the foot of a 400-year-old ceiba tree, with tears swelling in my eyes, I felt released. Thank you. I'm sweating, y'all. I never do shit like this, okay? I usually talk like this. We can go through the slides now. I can tell you what I was looking at, and you can ask me questions. But my cheeks are red. I am schwitzing. Don't hug me. If I hug you from under, it's because I'm trying to protect you all. Because I am going through it right now. So let's talk. I am open for questions. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I would love to ask me anything. She could tell you. I'll tell you whatever you want to know. Yes. So what's up? Anybody? And it's a lot. It's a lot to unpack. I get it. Yes, ma'am.
How's your Spanglish?
My Spanglish is bopping. I actually speak better Spanish than I think I do. But whenever I'm in Gringolandia for too long, I kind of forget. I don't have enough access to other people that speak Spanish, so I get rusty. But after a couple of days, como que you know? So Boricuas on the island, órale por allá, pues fíjate que así, you know what I mean? But it's okay. Like I have enough to defend myself, and I think that our family, especially my mother and the sisters, we worked very, very hard to try to replicate an authentic experience, as authentic as an experience as you can have in the Bronx, which is tricky. So it's the little things that I get caught out there. Like when I went to Puerto Rico once, I was there for an exhibition, and someone asked me, I wanted to go to the bodega, which is a very New Yorican thing, but in Puerto Rico you go to the colmado, and I did not know that. So these little things are like, ¿tú eres de por allá? I'm like, no, you know what I mean? But yeah, but my Spanish it's not that bad. It could be worse. I've heard worse. Anybody else have any questions? 1, 2. Okay, la profe is in the building.
No, I was just thinking about when we were visiting Justin earlier today at the National Hispanic Culture Center, and as we were arriving, you were really drawn to one of the really old cottonwood trees.
I totally took pictures. I couldn't help myself.
And I mean, you're talking about the trees here, and that really resonates because I got my master's in arts and African diaspora, and I wrote my thesis on Sebas. In Nigeria.
I should have been talking to you this whole time.
It's all about the sacred tree in Nigeria and then how it gets translated, in my case, in Haiti, in Modu, you know, where all ceremonies take place around a tree, and then that gets abstracted into the Patoniton inside the temples. And so I'm really familiar with like the African side of the significance of trees. So when you were like really interested in the tree and whatnot, and then you showed these images, you know, and you're drawing trees. Where is the tree going to be in your work? Is your new work going to be focused on that? I mean, the tree seems so central in the way that you're thinking about things right now. What are you going to do with that? How is that going to get expressed in your creative practice?
So, all right, so I'm going to be that jerk that goes rifling through these things. So, I'll tell you, the trees, first of all, how they really started showing up. Did anybody else try to grow shit during the pandemic? Is that just me? Anybody else? All right, we on lockdown. And then it was half the hanging out with y'all.
We would send each other pictures of each other's gardens.
Yes, exactly. So those two folks right over there, they were witness to me being in that crazy cedar forest in the Jurutungas of Texas. Not Seguin. Seguin is not the Jurutungas, but where I was, definitely was La Venta del Carajo, Texas, right? But I was out in this artist residency that was supposed to be sustainable, que sé que cuánto, blah, blah, blah. And I came back radicalized. I'm like, we should have a full forest, and I have a lawn, and I have dirt, and I have rain, and I have sun, and fuck the establishment. And I'm gonna grow my own finca. Que se joda la puta madre, blah, 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 right? I came back like this. You know, I came back like really, mira, arredé como una media, which means turned inside out like a sock, like when you take off your socks. And so I was hell-bent on like bucking the system and fuck all that shit, and people are sitting there fighting over toilet paper. I'm like, y'all don't have washcloths? Like, I had this whole narrative in my head of like how I was gonna survive and I was gonna get off the grid and all this other shit, and it's Florida, how bad could it be? Bueno. I think I grew $300 worth of corn, which means I got 3 ears of corn that cost me about $300 of stuff just to get that, because if it wasn't I learned so many things. I learned what frass is. Anybody know what frass is?
Yeah.
Caterpillar shit, right? Like it's caterpillar shit. How do you know that? I'm gonna grow it organic. Okay, está bien entonces. ¿Quieres organic? Coge organic. So I'm trying to grow things and I'm making a mess. I'm trying to get. Te digo. Corn grows like this, right? Caterpillars go like this. Puerto Rican girls from the Bronx go like this to get the caterpillars out of my organic corn. You think you're doing good? Well, the corn starts growing like this. Your corn comes out like this. Whatever you could eat the squirrels got. I tried to grow cauliflower también. The squirrels. I tried to grow squash, and my husband had cleared out this plot. And I'm reading the instructions, like, you're supposed to put them 18 inches apart. He's like, you're only gonna put 3 after we did all this stuff? So we put them all together. Now the squash is like this. And so I went to go pick up one of my glorious squash that grew, but there's vine borers that went through the plants, ate everything from the inside. So I had a beautiful squash on the outside, but when I picked it up, it just melted in my hands. All that to say, the drawings and these weird things that I started doing, these variants, all of that was inspired by all of my fuck ups in the garden. All of it. What happened, things growing wrong, things like under pressure that I was putting on it, the sun, the bugs. I planted beautiful things at the wrong time. And it was in the fuck ups that I had my first real taste of humility. I'm like, you're gonna learn. Nature is gonna do what it's gonna do. You think you're stronger. You think. And it was really humbling. And that's when I drew the parallel between what we think we're doing in the garden and what we do to each other. You can't un-gay somebody. You can't un-black somebody. You can't un-Mexican somebody. You can't uncross the river. You know what I mean? Like all of this shit that we're seeing was all this pressure to try to hold things and make them do what we want them to do instead of letting things flow as they should. Right? Because my corn grew. It looked crazy. It looked, I mean, but it grew. And the other thing that happened, because y'all don't know this about me, but I did performance art for a long time. I still do, kind of, technically. But living in Florida after George Floyd and people throwing All Lives Matter at me with my little black child, I'm like, I can't do my performance work. Someone's gonna fucking kill me. And I have one job, and that's to raise my kid. Everything else is extra. How can I keep making work and keep my body, this body, safe so that I can finish what I came here to do, which is to raise my kid? And the performances, I would make these wigs, these queens, and all the haughtiness and all of my anxiety was manifested in these queens. But I said, what if my wigs mutated the way my garden mutated, the way our society has mutated, the way people are just bending out of shape just to keep something that they really believe in, even when it's not working anymore. Like my garden, you know? But by the time we got here, I realized that I just was so fucking tired of being mad, of reacting, just exhausted as an artist. Like everything that I did was a fight. Fighting people, fighting the trains, fighting the system, fighting the art world, fighting all of this. You know how many times I've taken off my proverbial earrings to like cansada, I'm too old for this shit, right? But more than that, like my psyche was exhausted. I found myself picking scabs to try to find pain to pull from. I drive a Subaru. I live in a cul-de-sac. I'm chilling. I got a tenure track job. I'm about to be full professor. I'm not hurting for cash. I could shop at Wegmans or Whole Foods if I want to. You see what I'm saying? Like that's a whole different echelon. Viste, I said echelon. Trágatela. Okay? I did that shit. And I'm like, it doesn't have to hurt. Cut yourself some slack. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm just like, I can't keep doing this. My mental health is at risk, right? I can't keep pulling from the pain. I can't, and I refuse to continue to traffic in brown misery for audience to consume at will. I'm not gonna make tragedy porn anymore. I'm not gonna peel my scabs so that you can look and go, ah, she's so brave. Okay? I just am. I don't wanna be brave. I got shit to do. Right? Like the rest of us. So I'm not gonna do that. Why can't I just enjoy and be happy? Full stop. Full stop. So these girls, I go to this residency, and it's an old church that got redone in Charlotte, North Carolina. And what time is it? Que yo estoy hablando mucho. And I just felt safe. Just felt safe. And I realized that all of the reinas and all that other stuff, if you go, you can look on my website, you'll see all the other stuff. Always very powerful, but girded. I've never done nudes before of myself, ever. And there it is, in this church. Pa'l carajo. Put your money where your mouth is. Take it off. All of it. Strip. Take everything off. And take pictures, and then draw yourself in a landscape that you feel safe in. Even if it's for a little while. And you can see that here, these braids and hair are kind of dripping, because when I first went to Florida, the Spanish moss looked like hair swaying. And I was like, I need to keep this thing going, right? This landscape, this vibe, but now I want to be in it. At least here, I'm safe. I'm allergic to everything. So if I was in a real landscape, I'm fucked up, like bad, like real bad. It's not cute. Those mosquitoes, it's bad. But here, I'm safe. I was like, let the little fat folds land where they may. My eggplant titties, they're gonna be out. Tranquila, bella de la vida. Like I'm just gonna be. And maybe, just maybe, I can start to cultivate that peace that I'm hoping for. That sense of relax, of release. But what ended up happening is that I started realizing that those trees are not really mine. It's just this placeholder, like a placebo. And when I went to Puerto Rico, let me see, can I be that jerk? When I saw this tree, I lost my shit. This one. I don't know what it was about her, but I'm going down the hill with my sister and my friends and my son, and we go to the edge of the water. And when I looked up, I just saw this. I started crying like a baby. And I felt like I was initiated into a bigger family. Like I went and I was baptized. For me. My sisters are there, kids playing, whatever, and it was just like... And the thing is that it was like just July 4th weekend, and Boricuas don't celebrate independence. Independence from who? But they'll throw a barbecue. So this place, this was taken at Puente Roto, right? No, I'm that person, annoying, terrible, I know. This is my sister Lily, my badass sister, and there goes my son with the waves and the curls like the ocean. And they've got snails. They were playing with tree snails, by the way, and I thought that was so sweet. Just let them vibe, right? But this is at the part, this bridge that is called Puente Roto, broken bridge, and people just know to go there. And there's these paths that are beaten down, and you kind of walk down. And my sister's packing sandwiches. Oh, we gotta take sandwich to Puente Roto. I'm like, what are we gonna go jump in the river? And she was like, oh no, we're just gonna take a light snack. Light snack to a Puerto Rican. She's heating up rice. She's heating up beans. She has all this other stuff. And I'm like, what are we taking all this shit? When we get to the bottom of the thing, there were people with full-on domino tables. A gas grill. Someone must have lowered it off the edge of the bridge. There was reggaeton playing over here, bachata over there. But it was like, I felt like I was home. And there was no barriers. People were sitting here. My sister, we're trying to scooch our stuff to the kind of stay contained. That's a very New York thing. And one lady goes, nothing belongs to nobody. This is everybody's. Come closer. Do you want me to fix you a plate? There was a lady who made a caldero of sancocho, which is like, what did you have today?
Caldo.
Caldo. The olla, the caldero, was like, I have pictures of it. It was like this big. And you know what they were using? Pallets. They were breaking pallets with a machete to make a fire. And, you know, I don't know, it was crazy. But I didn't feel out of place. And I realized that I always feel out of place. Always. Somewhere. Too white, too dark, too loud, too this, too educated, too hood. But not there. It was like, oh my God. You know? And I don't know. It was just crazy. So that's a very, very long way to get to your answer. The trees, I'm enchanted by them. I feel like I want to keep making these portraits of these sentient beings, something that's just beautiful, right? Like, do I have to do more to validate my place as an artist? Can I just relish and savor that I could draw my ass off? That's okay, right? I could do that. No one told Picasso he couldn't be a badass. He just did it. Why do I have to keep finding reasons? And so it's like, I could draw. You can't tell me shit. And my drawing game is on point. These girls are huge. They're like 6-footers, right? I love the bigness, the quiet in the space. I love, like, yeah, I could do that. I've been drawing faces for years, but it's this that I'm like, I could just dig all day long, and just work through this mystery. That to me is thrilling. And I feel like 25 plus years in the game, I've earned the right to be still, right? I've earned that opportunity to just draw the shit out of a leaf. I've got this tree right here, where, otra vez, me cago en nada. All right. Okay, oh. So, the trees, the wigs, the thing, right? So I was like, okay, well, these wigs have mutated. And now there's these tree weird things that I started growing with hair and beads and stuff. But I felt like people couldn't make the leap, that the wigs were mutations of me. And so I said, well, what if my wigs mutated while I wore them, right? And then I made a prototype, which was this one. And then I got my ass in a lake, praying that a water moccasin didn't bite me in the cooch. We can laugh. It's okay. I was scared though. I got in, and I'm like, and then like, find your lights. I'm like this. Oh shit, something could bite me. Oh shit, take the picture, right? So I'm like, find your light, girl, find your light. And then pray that nothing, that would have been really bad. Really, really bad. So, oh my God, somebody's filming this, right? Shit. Damn it. But I needed to be in it. Like I wanted to feel like I was hiding, like I could receive, but still emerge at will and push back at will. But even that felt forced, right? And drawing, I don't know, whatever. It's just, I just want to draw trees now. And people. And beautiful things. And como que, I feel like I don't want to have to keep digging for horrible things, Anybody else got any questions? There's got to be at least one. I know I said something crazy. Yes, that's right, yes.
It was something, so it was like a two-part question, but like the first part was about the wigs, and like what you were thinking about, but what I'm also, for me as a viewer, was like, if I didn't hear what you were saying about them, for me it looks sort of like a kind of a disconnection through like a very like European like dress, like a big thing is what when I look at it is what I think of. And
yeah, that was right there. Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And so for me then it kind of becomes sort of like a mask that you wear, like as an artist, like you think, how do I be in a place but also not feel like I don't belong there or something like that. So the idea of like a wig sort of being changing you into a different person, and then that having that idea of like dislocation but also being in place. That's what did those wigs have a part to play in the idea of belonging or unbelonging in your work?
That's a great question. That's a great question. The earlier work that I did was like, I felt like at the time I would make these sort of deities, or, it was how I worked through my anxiety. And so, because I like to tell stories and I have a comic background and all that other stuff, so I decided that for me, the best way of dealing with anxiety, which probably would have been cheaper to go to a therapist, but, whatever. I would focus on one thing that really had me freaked out and try to extract it from myself and look at it like a scientist. Take it out of me and pull it apart. And from those pieces, I would construct a person that existed, right? And she was this, but always an alpha, always a queen, never a servant, never a submissive. And this sort of, kind of this idea that, there's a respected, kind of the Spaniard, European, whatever. Because Puerto Ricans, we don't have that. We had caciques, but, so I decided I wanted to like play with that because I knew that my body wasn't meant for this. And so I'm like, watch, right? But by this point, I wanted to show the twist, the twisting and the distortion of those ideas, right? I really wanted to show them what happens when you push too hard and it starts to bulge and break and fall apart. But then be at ease, right? In this discomfort. And that thing is heavy and awful to wear. It's made out of chicken wire and spray foam and all these things, and it's itchy, and then you've got, in my mind, I had snakes swarming around me. That did not happen.